Hi, my name is Fritzi Horstman, and welcome to Compassion in Action. My guest today is Dr. Daniel Amen. I have been a huge fan of his for the past 4 years, ever since I watched his TED Talk. Dr. Daniel Amen says, human behavior is more complex than society's damning labels would have us believe. We are far too quick to attribute people's actions to a bad character when the source of their actions may not be their choice at all, but a problem with brain physiology. How many bad kids sitting in juvenile hall would prove to be perfectly nice people with the right treatment? Sometimes people aren't being loving, industrious, cheerful, peaceful, obedient, or kind, not because they wouldn't like to be, but because something is wrong with their brain, something that is potentially fixable. This conversation is good for people in prison, but it's also great for all of us. We can take control of our brains and we can heal. And so I recommend this podcast to all of you. And I also am so grateful for the information that is now available to all of you men and women in prison and to the rest of us. Here's Dr. Daniel Amen's bio. Dr. Daniel Amen's mission is to end mental illness by creating a revolution in brain health. He is dedicated to providing the education, products, and services to accomplish this goal. Dr. Amen is a physician, adult, and child psychiatrist and founder of Amen Clinics with 11 locations across the U.S. Amen Clinics has the world's largest database of brain scans for psychiatry, totaling more than 250,000 SPECT scans on patients from 155 countries. He is the founder of BrainMD, a fast-growing science-based nutraceutical company, and Amen University, which has trained thousands of medical and mental health professionals on the methods he has developed. Dr. Amen is a 12-time New York Times bestselling author, including Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, The End of Mental Illness, Healing ADD, and many more. Dr. Daniel Amen, welcome to Compassion in Action. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am so grateful.
So, Dr. Amen, let's just jump in. Up to 85% of the men and women in prison have traumatic brain injury, and that number goes to 97% for women who have been choked and have experienced anoxia. So, what are we going to do with all this brain injury? It's not a mental illness, it's a brain injury, as you say. What can we do to help the men and women in prison who are suffering?
Dostoevsky said, you can tell about the soul of a society, not by how it treats its outstanding citizens, but by how it treats its criminals.
Yes.
And I'm horrified by what we do in the United States, because it's really not about rehabilitation, it's about vengeance. And it's a really bad use of money. It's like I'm a value spender. Like I don't leave the lights on at home. I want to have value for the money I spend, and the value of human capital we're wasting by not seeing that if your behavior is so bad they lock you in a cage, that somebody should look at their brains and rehabilitate their brains so they can become, if possible, a more meaningful part of our society, including working and paying taxes. So I see this as a moral imperative, and we're failing, but we can do better. So at Amen Clinics, I have 11 clinics around the United States. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary, actually this week. And we just do things so differently. We don't make diagnoses based on symptom clusters with no biological data. That happens in prison every day. And these poor people are on a boatload of psychiatric medications, but are not getting well. We've been doing imaging, and we have this database of 250,000 scans. And the first lesson I learned is most psychiatric illnesses are not mental health issues, they're brain health issues. Get your brain healthy and your mind will follow. And then the next big lesson, just like you said in the introduction, is mild traumatic brain injury is a major cause of psychiatric problems. It's a major cause of behavior problems. It's a major cause of incarceration. And no one knows about it. No one's doing anything about it. And the next lesson is you're not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better, and I can prove it. I've done it on NFL players. I've done it on boxers. I've done it on soldiers. Come on, let's rehabilitate these brains so when they get out, they don't come back. Like, what a concept, right? Recidivism is about 70% of people who go to jail end up coming back. What if you could cut that to 20% by having a brain health, brain directed program?
Absolutely. And I have been teaching the men and women in prison about TBI. We have a whole episode in our curriculum about traumatic brain injury. And so having you, I've been following you since I started working with the people in prison. And I feel that you and your colleagues have the tools and the information that we need to bring to prisons to get things going. Now, of course, there's a lot of problems with financing and budget. So what I'm thinking is we do a pilot and we see if it works, and we see the most damaged brains, give them hyperbaric, whatever you prescribe. And then maybe we can start raising money this way to help our most marginalized and dehumanized people in our society.
Yeah, it's not a matter of money. It's a problem with imagination. That doing something that's very expensive the same way over and over and over again is going to get us the same dismal results, right? I mean, you're going to spend the money either way. Why not spend it with looking at their brains, optimizing their brains, teaching them about their brains? So I'm like, yes, you could do it in the expensive way. And we just met. I've been thinking about this for a very long time. Our first clinic in Northern California was right next to the Vacaville prison. Which is a huge prison. And we got funding from the state of California to start imaging inmates. And then 9/11 happened, and we lost all the funding because the government had to cut the budget. So this has been going on over 20 years. And then we were going to put a SPEC camera in the sexually violent predator prison in the San Joaquin Valley. And then the medical director got San Joaquin Valley fever, and our program sort of disintegrated. I just think, what a concept, that if the brain's not right, your behavior's not right. And if we're serious about rehabilitation, we would be looking at and optimizing the brain. So I don't think it's money. I think it's imagination, because the kind of money they spend in prisons when things go badly, this would more than pay for itself. But let's say we had no money. Well, we could teach inmates to love and care for their brain. Some of them would not be interested, but I bet the majority would be. We actually have a high school program called Brain Thrive by 25. Decreases drug, alcohol, and tobacco use, decreases depression, and improves self-esteem. And it's not expensive. I mean, basically, it's just information, right? If you taught people to love and care for their brains, that would make a difference.
Well, this video is going to be accessed by 1 million people in prison. And so we can actually get information to them today. And and help them love their brains. One of the things you say is do good and avoid bad and do good. So what does that mean?
Yeah, I horrified myself one day when I figured out I could summarize my 45-year career in 3 words. And brain health is 3 things. The first is brain envy. You got to care about it. Nobody cares about their brain. Why? You can't see it. You can see the wrinkles in your skin or the fat around your belly, and you can do something when you're unhappy with it. But because nobody looks at the brain, nobody cares about it. So the first step is care. That's the first word, is you got to care about your brain. It controls everything you do, how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you get along with other people. Your brain is the organ of intelligence, character, and every single decision you make. And when your brain works right, you work right. And when it doesn't, you begin to lose control over your destiny. Yes. Because you start making bad decisions. And I have all of my patients do an exercise called the 1-page miracle. On one piece of paper, write out what you want: relationships, work, money, physical, emotional, spiritual health. So if you're in prison, you still have goals. And what are those goals? And does your behavior get you the goals, or does it get you things you actually don't want? Right. I think it's so important. Tell your brain what you want. And the healthier your brain is, the more your brain can create hope, which means you can make a difference in tomorrow, and a sense of power or agency. So that's step 1, care about your brain. Step 2 is stop doing things that hurt your brain. And you just sort of have to know the lists. And in all of my books, I talk about what to avoid. And I have an acronym I like called Bright Minds. You want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. But it tells us what to stop, like drugs and alcohol damage the brain. So Bright Minds, B is for blood flow. What lowers blood flow? Drugs, alcohol, much caffeine, nicotine, having a sedentary lifestyle. And so it tells us what to do, right? Care, stop, do. Those are the 3 words. Well, exercise, absolutely critical. So the more you can exercise is actually an antidepressant. It increases blood flow to the brain. And if you had access to supplements, I like ginkgo. And if you have access to beets, I love beets because they increase nitric oxide, which increases blood flow to the brain. Cinnamon does that as well. The R is retirement and aging. When you stop learning, your brain starts dying. So whatever you could do in prison to learn something new, to take every class available to you, to just keep your brain active, that's a really good thing. The I is inflammation. And what hurts us with inflammation? What increases inflammation? Sugar. And so you probably have way more access to sugar than is good for you. And so saying yes to the pear and no to the cake is probably a good idea if you can do that. Another super simple thing you can do in prison is floss your teeth, because gum disease is a major cause of inflammation and also a major cause of heart disease and brain disease. So see the dentist as they allow you to. Take it seriously to take care of your mouth. The G is genetics, and a lot of people blame their genes for their behavior. In my family, I have heart disease and obesity. and I'm not overweight and I don't have heart disease. Why? I'm on an obesity, heart disease prevention program every day of my life. I have 6 children. I adopted 3 of them. 2 of them I adopted because their parents were drug addicts. And I'm like, you need to be on an addiction prevention program every day of your life. If you ever use, you're an addict because it's in your genes. I'm not supporting you ever. So I'm just like really clear, know your risks and work to avoid them. H is head trauma, just like you said, and sky high in the homeless population, sky high in the prison population. So do things to protect your head. Be careful with it. T is toxins from drugs and alcohol, certainly, but also general anesthesia is toxic to the brain. Mold is toxic. A lot of products we put on our bodies are toxic. And so you want to support the 4 organs of detoxification, which are drink more water, exercise, sweat is detoxifying, eat food that has fiber in it, if that's possible for you, and stay away from alcohol because it's damages your liver, which your liver detoxifies your body. The M is mental health stuff, which I think should be basic training in 3rd grade. They should teach you not to believe every stupid thing you think. Do you know the average ACE score in prison? So ACE is adverse childhood experiences. It's something I'm really interested in.
Yes, we surveyed over 3,000 men and women in prison. Our findings were 64% had 6 or more ACEs. And that's one of the things we do is we teach them about adverse childhood experiences. 79% have 4 or more in our surveys. And we also, I brought some of my surveys here. This is just a pile. We also asked them, when did they start doing drugs and what kind of drugs? And here it says I was young, but I did most of them. I was 8 or 9. I did marijuana. I was 12. I did crystal and weed. So they've also been exposed not only to ACEs, but also to large amounts of drugs and alcohol before they're even 15. So this is the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention.
Yeah, and having a high ACE score changes your brain. We just got accepted for publication, the world's largest imaging study on adverse childhood experiences. And it was on 7,500 people. And it changes your brain in a negative way. It makes your suffering pathways in your brain higher, which means you're more likely to use drugs to calm them down. And I like EMDR. It's a specific psychological treatment for trauma. It's a much better strategy than alcohol or marijuana. And the idea that marijuana is innocuous is a lie. I just found out the NBA actually stopped testing their athletes for marijuana. And so there's a very high incidence of professional athletes using marijuana. And it's just as dumb as it can be because marijuana is not innocuous, like we're being lied to in our society. The second I is immunity and infections, and COVID has changed the ballgame because, and I think if we tested inmates for infections, we'd see a very high percentage of things like Lyme disease and toxoplasmosis. And then neurohormone abnormalities, whether it's high cortisol, put me in prison, my cortisol, I'm sure would be elevated, which shrinks your hippocampus. Cortisol is a stress hormone, which then shrinks the major memory center in the brain, making you more likely to be cognitively impaired and depressed. Low testosterone is rampant among young people now because of the toxins we have in personal products like shaving cream and deodorant. D is diabesity. The amount of diabetes and being overweight in prison is probably sky high because of the stress hormones and the bad food. And S is sleep. And it's very hard to sleep in a place that is stressful and chaotic. And if you want to be healthy, you have to prevent or treat those 11 risk factors. And I'm sure we could develop strategies for each that are cost effective that would improve behavior. And we just have to have people like you that are forward thinking, that, find this population valuable. And, everyone has sinned. So I go back to my Catholic roots. Everyone has sinned and falls short of the glory of God. I was just saying this with a patient. I had a youngster who got into trouble with bad behavior. And I'm like, so what does the Lord's Prayer says? Forgive us this day as we forgive others. And I'm like, oh, whoa. I'm forgetting it as I forgive. Maybe I need to be better at that.
Yes, you said, oh God, where is this? Well, anyway, I want to ask you about traumatic brain injury. What does damage to the prefrontal cortex do to behavior? Because this is the key here, right? The average incarcerated person has 4 to 12 traumatic brain injuries. That's the finding. And so it's not just one mild traumatic brain injury, it's 4 to 12. Most of the men have been in gangs and they've gotten jumped to be in a gang. One of the things I will tell them is to wear a helmet when they're getting jumped. Of course, they laugh, but they got to protect their brain, right? And they're not. So if you can just explain what the prefrontal cortex is, the root of where our personality is, right? That's what you say, is that's what defines our personalities and makes us human. So when that's damaged, and also, can you also talk about the temporal lobes and the left temporal lobe? Oh, what's happening?
I'll grab my brain here.
Oh, good. We've got the brain.
A model of it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And so the front third of the brain is called the prefrontal cortex, largest in humans and any other animal by far. It's 30% of the human brain, 11% of the chimpanzee brain, 7% of your dog's brain, 3% of your cat's brain, and 1% of a mouse's brain. And it's involved with forethought, judgment, impulse control, organization, planning, empathy, learning from the mistakes you make. And when you have a concussion or you have a traumatic brain injury, 91% of the time it affects the prefrontal cortex. And which means you're not going to be as thoughtful, forward thinking, and it's going to damage your decision making. And you can repair it. I'm absolutely convinced. Now, obviously, it depends on how severe the injuries were. But by and large, my experience, seeing tens of thousands of people over the years, is if you do the right things, your brain can be better. It's probably the big headline in neuroscience over the last 2 decades, is you're not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. I can prove it. I did the big NFL study with 400 NFL players, high levels of damage, right? They've been hit in the head thousands of times. 80% of my players get better when we put them on a rehabilitation program, which is basically care, stop, do. You have to teach them to love their brain, avoid things that hurt it, do things that help it. And we put them on a multiple vitamin, fish oil, and a brain boost that works in 6 different ways. And some of them we put in a hyperbaric chamber, and I published a study on that. It's just you have to live with the idea if you want a good life, you have to have a good brain, right? With a better life, with a better brain comes all the things that make a better life. And ultimately, it's because you have better decisions.
Yes. And also, when the prefrontal cortex is impaired or injured, it cannot appropriately, as you say, it cannot appropriately inhibit the limbic system, the reactive system, and also the temporal lobes, right? Which is where we're more moody. Here we go.
So the temporal lobes sit right behind a very sharp bony ridge called the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone that in human skulls is as sharp as a knife.
Mm.
And so if you fall off your bike or you're punched in the face, it damages your temporal lobes. And one of the things I've seen is damage, especially to the left side. You can get mood instability, irritability, dark thoughts, hurting yourself or hurting somebody else. And if your prefrontal cortex is low, it can't break those thoughts and you end up giving in. Now, most of the people in jail that I've scanned did their crimes while they were intoxicated with something or other, whether it's methamphetamines or alcohol. And those things take a vulnerable brain and then take off the supervisor. And so it's like the supervisor went on vacation, and that's when you did whatever thing that got you into jail for. You always want your supervisor to stick around, especially in stressful situations.
Yes, and that's hard when you're in fight or flight. I say things, the other thing about when we go offline, when the prefrontal cortex goes offline, we say and do things we regret. And that's because the supervisor is gone, right?
Correct.
Or we're intoxicated. You also talk about the cingulate system, and how that affects this is violent behavior that we're talking about here. And so I want to make sure everybody understands the inner workings of the brain so that they can start becoming aware of when they're having repetitive thinking or whatever it is.
So adverse childhood experiences activates the anterior cingulate. It's one of the big findings that we saw. And I think of the cingulate, and it's with a C, C-I-N-G-U-L-A-T-E. Anterior just means toward the front of the brain, is your gear shifter. It allows you to go from thought to thought, move from idea to idea, be flexible, go with the flow. And when it works too hard, you tend to get stuck and you get the same thought in your head over and over. So you can be worried, rigid, inflexible, things don't go your way, you get upset. It's also involved in error detection. So you just begin to see that things are wrong. And when you feel disrespect, it fires up. When you've had childhood trauma, it fires up. If you have lower serotonin levels, which is common in women. Women have 52% less serotonin than men, which is why they have a higher incidence of depression. It fires it up. Now, in my work, I have found that there's actually, and we've already talked about these three systems, there's three subtypes of violence. There's impulsive violence. You get a thought, you just act on it without thinking about it. Jerry Seinfeld said the brain is a sneaky organ. We all have weird, crazy, stupid, sexual, violent thoughts that nobody should ever hear. And so you get a violent thought and boom, you act on it without forethought. And that's often what happens when you're intoxicated. You just get a bad thought and you act on it because you don't think about the consequences half an hour later or tomorrow. So that's impulsive violence. There's also compulsive violence.
Mm, mm,
It's like, you bastard, you bastard, you bastard. And you can't get the thought out of your head. And so you commit a crime. So if you think of stalkers,
right.
serial killers, that's compulsive violence. And then there's temporal lobe violence where it happens for little to no reason. You're just like, why did you do that? And it's because of those dark, evil, awful thoughts that just cause you to rage. And
Mm.
knowing the system involved, and sometimes it's all three, is really important to getting the right treatment. Um, and ultimately, it's always balancing the brain. But if you can target treatment to the system you know is not great, that will help you. Online, we have a free online test called Brain Health Assessment. We've had 7 million people take it. And it just helps you know, well, what type of brain am I? Am I balanced? Am I spontaneous? It's my ADD type. Am I persistent? It's my OCD type, sensitive or cautious. And then there's combinations of those. It helps you know, well, what supplements might help me or what behavioral strategies might help me.
Yes, they can ask their friends or spouses to do the test with them when we can have them do that. That's fantastic. So what about the deep limbic system? That's the amygdala, and that's when I was reading your book and you talked about PMS. I don't really want to go into PMS, but you really explained my mother's behavior. You know, I have 8 ACEs, and so my mother, and she grew up. She was adopted into a family, so she had so much trauma, and her brain, you know, if we had this brain technology and information that you have, you would have saved my life and my son's life, right? The generational trauma continued. So, you know, the deep limbic system. Can you explain what that is? And also, the brain is either too active or not active enough. That's the other thing I learned reading your books is we have to turn on the places that are dormant and then lower the activity in the places that are firing too hot.
Yeah, it's really about balance, that
Mm.
you want to balance your brain. And so if it's working too hard because of past emotional trauma, you want to calm it down. If it's not working hard enough, you want to find a way to stimulate it. And and part of it comes from loving your brain and then sort of having a roadmap of what might not, you know, what could be better. And the brain health assessment is just, it's free. It's give you great information on it. The limbic system is really important and it has some really powerful structures like the amygdala, which is involved in threat detection or fear, the hippocampus, which is involved in memory, the thalamus, which is sort of the sensory gateway into the brain. It's where we feel, and when it works too hard, we tend to feel sad. And so the limbic part of the brain tends to color whatever happens to us in a positive way or a negative way. And when it works too hard, we tend to be more negative. I just published a study in translational psychiatry about depression in the limbic system. It's very important. It's larger in women than men because it's also involved in bonding and it processes your sense of smell. And memory, which is why if I hurt my wife's feelings, she'll remember it for 15 years or longer. Yeah, I find it all so fascinating. And whenever you believe a negative thought, your limbic system gets activated. And so our only hope is accurate thinking with a positive spin. I teach all my patients to kill the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that steal your happiness. Whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write down what you're thinking. And then just ask yourself whether or not it's true. Right? It's logic that they should have taught all of us in second grade. I was 28 years old in my psychiatric residency when one of my professors said, you have to teach your patients not to believe every stupid thing they think. I'm like, but I believe every stupid thing I think. I was 28 years old, finished medical school in my, specialty training. And I'm like, that's a powerful thought. Just because you have a thought has nothing to do with whether or not it's true. And it's our unquestioned thoughts that create a great deal of limbic suffering. So I teach all of my patients to kill the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that steal their happiness. I have an anteater. I know my background sort of stealing him a little bit, but he's so cute.
Oh, he's so cute.
The reason I have him here is like I'm feeling sad. I'm like, hey, gotta go grab that ant. You don't have to believe every stupid thing you think. And thoughts come from all sorts of places. They come from your mother. They come from your father. They're written into your genetic code. You may have nothing to do with that thought. And all of a sudden you get these awful thoughts. They come from the news you watch or the music you listen to, and thoughts lie. They lie a lot. And it's our unquestioned thoughts that create suffering. And I always say it's not the thoughts you have that make you suffer, it's the thoughts you attach to. So I'm really masterful. I had this random thought today, like, you're not powerful. Oh, no, it was, you're not a big thinker. Because I had this sort of fun opportunity I didn't know what to do with. And then I'm like, you're not a big thinker. You are a big thinker. And I'm like, I'm totally a big thinker.
Totally.
Maybe in not that situation. But you see, if I don't question the noise, then I believe it. And then I attack myself. So another fun strategy, I have a little raccoon here.
Oh, I don't know about the raccoons. I know about the penguins and the seahorses and the butterflies.
Well, if you read my book, You Happier, you'll learn about the raccoon.
Oh.
And it's based on a technique of give your mind a name just to gain psychological distance from the noise in your head. And when I heard that, I had interviewed Stephen Hayes on my podcast. He's the founder of ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And one of their techniques is give your mind a name, just so you can begin to separate from the chatter. And I'm like, well, what would I name my mind? And I had a pet raccoon when I was 16. Her name was Hermie. And she's my mind. I loved her, but she was a troublemaker. She ate all the fish out of my sister's aquarium. She'd leave raccoon poop in my shoes. And that's my mind. It just creates trouble for me. And so when it acts up, I just metaphorically put her in the cage, where now I'll put her on her back and pet her, tickle her. Raccoons have 200 different sounds. And I just don't have to attach to the noise.
It's beautiful.
It's just so helpful to love your brain and then program your mind. And then notice what you like about other people way more than what you don't. And if you love your brain and program it, you love your life.
It's beautiful. I have one more part of the brain I'd like you to expound upon, the basal ganglia and what that does in this system of violence that we're dissecting and then unpacking and reimagining.
So the basal ganglia are very interesting, very large structures, and they're involved in habit formation. And they store trauma. And when they work too hard, along with the amygdala, can cause a lot of anxiety and fear. And so I just did this study where after EMDR, they calm down. I mean, it's really powerful. And we all are hostage to our habits.
Mhm.
So what you do day in and day out is you're creating those highways in your brain. They go through the basal ganglia, and you either become hostage to them or they help you.
Mm.
And you just want to ask yourself what you do, what you think, moment by moment. Does it hurt you or does it help you? And you don't want to be controlled by your habits. You want to design them. And too often, because of the news you watch or social media, we compare ourselves to others. That's a horrible habit because it just almost always makes you feel bad. What are the habits that elevate you, and what are the ones that steal your life? I did work with BJ Fogg at Stanford for 6 months. He's in charge of their persuasive technology lab. And we created a whole bunch of tiny habits. You know, what's the smallest thing I can do today that will make the biggest difference? And then I saw him at a conference a year later, and he said, I want to thank you. I said, why? And he said, I wake up 100% every day now. I'm like, that's awesome. Why? He said, I stopped drinking because of you, because alcohol is not a health food. And I mean, wouldn't you just like to wake up 100% every day because you're not poisoning yourself? And the alcohol had just been a habit because of the lie society gave us that alcohol is a health food. Well, that's insane, right? Anything that causes your supervisor to go on vacation, no, that's not a health food. Anything that increases your risk of 7 different cancers, that's not a health food. And so I know a lot of people, when they're in prison, they go, I can't wait to get out to drink. And it's like, that's so going to increase your risk of going back.
Well, I think they really want better food to start, which I think would also help the brain, right? If they had better food. And what are the important things? I know you said sugar. We should not eat sugar, not drink alcohol or do drugs. But what other things can they put in their body, whether they have a choice or not? I mean, they can supplement their diet with some things. I know it's hard, but to give them a roadmap of what they're putting in their mouths, is that, like, as you said, is this good for my brain or is this bad for my brain? And you also said saffron on one podcast I heard.
I love saffron. Saffron is just a wonderful spice supplement that has so many health benefits. When it comes to food and drink, I just want you to ask yourself this one question. Do I love it? And does it love me back? Right? I mean, I don't know how many people listening have been in a bad relationship, or if you've ever been in a bad relationship. Well,
Yes.
and I'm not doing it anymore. I'm married to my best friend, and I'm going to take care of that relationship. Well, and I'm damn sure not doing it with food, right? I am not going to love things that hurt me. I used to love Rocky Road ice cream, but it makes me fat, depressed, and feeble-minded. So I broke up with Rocky Road ice cream. And so we worked with the Salvation Army for a couple of years on how can you eat healthy. We worked with their largest addiction treatment program in Anaheim, and on a budget, you know, if they have salads, go for the salads because they have fiber. Don't put salad dressing on it. Just squeeze a lemon if you have that option, and olive oil. That's the best dressing that won't make you overweight, because there's often more calories in ranch or blue cheese dressing than, you know, You just pour it on and, the cheeseburger would have been better for you. So my food rules are smart calories. Calories count.
Mhm.
Of the 11 risk factors I talked to you about, if you're overweight, you have 10 of them. Being overweight decreases blood flow, prematurely ages the brain, increases inflammation, turns on bad genes, stores toxins, make you more depressed, damages your immunity, changes your hormones. I mean, it's just bad.
Yeah.
So work not to be skinny. Skinny's bad too, but to a healthy weight. And if you have a tape measure, your waist around your belly button, and you can't go by your pant size because pant manufacturers know consumers are unhappy with their weight, so they lie. 32 might actually be 36 inches around. So your waist should be half your height or less. So I'm 5'6", that's 66 inches. My waist needs to be 33 or less in order for me to be healthy. So smart calories, lots of water, protein. If you're going to have protein at every meal, that'll help balance your blood sugar. Healthy fat, don't go on a low-fat diet, but healthy fat, nuts and seeds, avocados if they're available, fish, nut butters, things like that. And then smart carbs. They're smart carbs and they're dumb carbs. If you've ever heard of the glycemic index, it's how quickly does a food turn to sugar. You want to avoid high glycemic foods, bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, fruit juice, sugar. There's a study at the Mayo Clinic. People who are on a fat-based diet had 42% less risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. People on a protein-based diet, so if you think of a caveman diet, they had 21% less risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. People who were on a simple carbohydrate-based diet, bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, fruit juice, sugar, had a 400% increased risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. It's the sugar and the foods that quickly turn to sugar. And so if you have a plate, try to make 70% plants. So salad, vegetables, some low glycemic fruits like apples, pears, oranges, berries. Avoid high sugar fruits, avoid all dried fruits because they're just sugar. And fruit juice is not healthy for you. It's because it's too much sugar. And whenever you unwrap fruit sugar, fructose, from its fiber source, it actually turns toxic in your body. So,
But so the food that we're eating, these high glycemic foods, which is basically most of the prison diet anyway, this is adding to, you said Alzheimer's, this is creating Alzheimer's. So we're actually not taking care of the brains in prison right now. So we also need to start really shifting that paradigm. That's what I'll be doing. That's what I'll be doing. So we've got diet. You mentioned in this conversation, hyperbaric chamber, EMDR, avoid bad, do good. And the last thing we didn't talk about is neural feedback, which is one of the things you have recommended in some places in your books. Can you tell us what?
I like neurofeedback a lot. And, I don't think in a practical way they're going to put spec cameras in prisons.
Yet.
They could do quantitative EEG.
Yes, let's do that.
And they could do that with low cost. And then they have home trainer devices that they could use in prison based on the QEEG to do neurofeedback to begin to change the brain to a more healthy state. And that could be practical. Now, if they got hyperbaric chambers, I think that would help reverse some of the damage
Yes.
that people have had from traumatic brain injury. And then perhaps strategies to teach EMDR, teach the therapists in prisons to do EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. That could be very powerful, and also teach inmates a strategy I like called havening. Havening is bilateral hemisphere stimulation to just sort of calm down your nervous system. Again, low cost, high yield.
Yes. We have havening in our curriculum, and EFT tapping and breathing and other ways to get to regulate the system. That's definitely what we're doing. And so if you had to pick one supplement, would it be ginkgo? Is it ginkgo you said?
Well, I wouldn't want to pick one.
Well, I
I had
know.
to pick one, it might be omega-3 fatty acids, because there is really good research in kids that if you increase the omega-3 fatty acid intake, you decrease aggression.
Yes.
And so saffron would be at the top. I mean, I take both of them every day. Saffron has 25 randomized controlled trials showing it's equally effective to antidepressants, but it doesn't decrease your libido or sexual function. It actually increases it. And it's been shown to help memory. So if I think mood, memory, sex, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I like that. And omega-3 fatty acids can help calm down the overactive parts of the brain, and help your joints work better.
And a good source of that is fish, right? Is that?
Fish. I actually like omega-3 fatty acid supplements better because they take all the mercury out.
Oh,
They filter them, and I think it's a great source. But if you had a choice between chicken or fish, probably eating the fish is a healthier option.
yes. Yeah. Well, they're not going to take the mercury out, and it'll be low grade farmed fish, so probably not. But these are incredible tips, and this conversation is so important, so people understand that their brain is, back to the thing we started with. It's not mental illness, it's brain illness, similar to a heart, right? We treat a heart when it's damaged or when it's impaired. If we have a broken arm, we fix it. We don't put a stigma on the fact that we have a broken arm. But in prison, going to the mental health clinic sometimes is forbidden, or it's seen as a weakness. And same with the military. The military also sees going for mental health care as a stigma. So what do we do? How do we shift that conversation?
Well, I think it's psychiatry's fault, quite frankly. Making diagnoses based on symptom clusters with no biological data, and then shaming people by calling them antisocial or borderline or narcissistic. Yeah, I'm not a fan of any of it. It's like, based on all the scans, what I've come to believe is most psychiatric illnesses are not mental health issues. They're brain health issues. Get your brain healthy and your mind will follow. And it's public knowledge. I've been Justin Bieber's doctor and love him. And like many of the celebrities I've seen, they come, they don't come, they show up on time, they're 4 hours late. They do what I say, mostly not. And he went through a hard season about 5 years ago, and he came into my office. About 3 months into therapy, he said, I think I get what you're trying to tell me. My brain is an organ, like my heart is an organ. If you told me I had heart problems, I'd do everything you said. I'm going to do everything you say. and he just got radically better. And we need to start thinking about it, right? Nobody wants a mental illness. Everybody wants a better brain. So what if mental health was really brain health? Because if you think of it as mental health, as I'm depressed, take an antidepressant. If you think of it as brain health, oh, well, I have to stop drinking because alcohol hurts my brain, or I shouldn't really be smoking pot because that hurts my brain. I need to go to bed rather than play the video game because not sleeping hurts my brain. It changes everything in how we approach brain health. And I believe that's why I'm on the planet, to end the concept of mental illness by creating a revolution in brain health. And I want to thank you for helping me do that.
Well, and this will get to 1 million people in prison, and we'll start a revolution of brain health instead of mental illness. We'll start a revolution of brain health. And I'm sure you'll be getting letters from people from around the world because of this podcast. Is there any other advice? I mean, you've given us so much wisdom in an hour. It's jam-packed. I'm so grateful for this. This is incredible. Is there anything else you want to leave? Oh, I had one more thing. The prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop until it's 25 years old in women and 28 years old, or I'd say, based on my dating experiences, probably 33. What happens? We are much more impulsive. We are my son is smoking marijuana. I showed him your scans, and he's like, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. Why is it so important that the youth get this information, and that we help the youth as they're growing and evolving, and have them stop treating their brains so drastically, terribly?
So, I might start with your son by saying, tell me your goals. What do you want? Relationships, work, money, physical, emotional, spiritual health. What do you want? And then how much of that do you think requires a healthy brain? So if we just tell them to stop, they won't. If we ask them what they want and then teach them just a little bit about how important brain is, they then will develop some cognitive dissonance, just like, maybe I shouldn't do this. And many of my patients just stop. And so I think, and then the other thing, how old is your son?
18.
Yeah. And then I would go, your brain's not done for at least a decade. And every time you put marijuana in, you're delaying development. And the research shows that if you started using it at 16 and you stop when you're 28, emotionally, you're still 16. And that's terrifying, right? The first time I was offered marijuana, I was in 10th grade, which was 1970. And I just looked at my friend like, are you insane? And I'm so glad I had that epiphany, right? I had no clue about the brain, but I'm just like, well, why would you decrease your will? Because I knew then that I would begin to lose control. And I like being in control of my life.
Yes. Yes. I took a pain pill because I got my tooth operated on. I had hydrocodone, and I was like, this sucks. I don't like this. I'd rather be in pain than do this. So I was really happy that I won't be an addict of that. But the brain is, when it's working, it's the best thing we have, and it changes our lives. And that's what's on offer here, right, Dr. Amen?
Right.
Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. Okay.
Well,
Take
bye.
care. Thank you, sir. Well, how about that? Dr. Amen in the house. As I was preparing for this podcast, I was just absorbing all of this incredible information about the prefrontal cortex, about the basal ganglia, about the temporal lobes, about the deep limbic system. And I didn't know half of the things that I learned from him. And I'm so grateful to have this information because it even deepens my understanding and hopefully your understanding about the different parts of our brains and how they work together and how they don't work together and how we can find ways to heal. And Dr. Daniel Amen, he talks about the prefrontal cortex. He says, the prefrontal cortex is the capacity to formulate goals, to make plans for their execution, to carry them out in an effective way, and to change course and improvise in the face of obstacles or failure, and to do so successfully in the absence of external direction or structure. The capacity of the individual to generate goals and to achieve them is considered to be an essential aspect of a mature and effective personality. It is hardwired in the construction of the prefrontal cortex and its connections. So the ability to formulate plans and to achieve goals, that's what this is for. That's what we're here for. We are here to experiment and be human and to see what we're capable of. And this is what we're doing at Compassion Prison Project. We're teaching the men and women in prison that they have value, that they can formulate plans and achieve goals. And once they do, their lives change. But that's not the only life that changed. The lives of their cellmates change. The lives of their community in prison change. The lives of their families change. The lives of their community changes. And the lives of our society changes. So we got to get our brain in the game. And that's why, to me, this episode is crucial. And the gift of Dr. Daniel Amen, I've known about this for 4 years, and I'm just so grateful for what he just did and what he is giving to the men and women in prison. So thank you, Dr. Daniel Amen. Your wisdom and your vision and your commitment to changing our brains is now rippling out to the men and women in prison and now rippling out to their families and to our society. We're getting into this system so we can change it from within. So I hope you all are as grateful as I am for this episode. And if you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it because all of our brains need a little tweaking. And I also hope you'll go to our website and learn about ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, ways you can help us, and ways we can change the world, because it starts with us, it starts with our brains, and it starts with getting our brains in the game. And that's what we're doing here. And I'm so grateful for this time with Dr. Amen and this time with you. And I'll see you next time.